Hi guys, what I have here is a planter that I love using for succulents. I'll show you the bottom and you can see that it doesn't have any drainage holes. This planter is very thick and made of heavy, durable material. It's called a cement vintage jar on the receipt, which explains why it's so heavy. So do we really need planters with holes for succulents? Ideally, yes, because drainage holes allow for excess water to seep out of the container. Succulents hold water in their tissues, leaves, and stems, and if they're sitting in water for too long, they're prone to rot. But what if you have a planter like this one that you really want to use, but it doesn't have drainage holes? Well, the good news is you can still use it for succulents. I've had this planter that I've been using for my succulents for almost 4 years. I know it's been that long because I just checked my online receipt, and it turns out I purchased this in 2017 from Home Depot. So I want to share with you 6 things you can keep in mind to keep your succulents alive in planters with no drainage holes. The first one is use the right potting mix, meaning use a fast draining one. If necessary, amend the soil to make it more fast draining. Soil is usually very compact, and adding bigger particles into the soil creates more space between them, allowing for water to dry out quicker and preventing the roots from sitting in wet soil for too long. As you can see, I'm mixing potting soil here. I'm mixing Bonsai Jack and Miracle Grow succulent mix. I want to get it at just the right texture that I want, so I'll keep mixing. The second thing you want to keep in mind is know how to water succulents in pots without drainage. Remember that excess water cannot drain out of the pot, so go easy on watering. Allow plants to dry out in between waterings and feel the soil for moisture before watering again. What I do is I use a squeeze bottle to help me control how much water goes into the container. You can also use a syringe or a spray bottle. Make sure to spray the soil and not just the surface of the plant. The third thing you want to keep in mind is knowing when and how often to water. When and how often to water depends greatly on the climate you live in, the growing season, and the size of your container. Plants tend to need more water during the dry and growing season. During the cooler months, when the plants are not growing as much, plants need less water. I usually pay attention to the plant to figure out when and how often to water. How it works for me for this planter is I water about once every 2 weeks in the summer months and cut down to about once a month or less during winter. Sometimes I forget to water until I notice my plants shriveling or wrinkling. That's when I know I need to water again. So before I keep going with the list, I think I finally got this to the exact texture that I want. So here's how the potting soil looks after mixing, and this is kind of what I was going for. Now that I'm finally done mixing, I'm going to stick some sedums in here. I always have some stem cuttings laying around somewhere, and I have a whole bunch of sedum stem cuttings that I think would look really nice in here. So anyway, going back to the list, I think we're up to number 4. The fourth one is keep it in the shade or move it when it rains. If you keep the planter outdoors like I do, I keep it in the shade so it's protected from rain. I used to keep it outdoors in the open, but the problem with this is I tend to forget to move it when it's raining, so now I just keep it under the shade. If you forget to move the pot and it gets rained on, just pour out the excess water as soon as you can. Or similarly, if you accidentally pour too much water, you can empty out the excess water by carefully tipping the pot over while holding down the plants so they don't fall out. You can also use a dry towel or paper towel to dab the excess water. The fifth one is use the right pot size for your plants. The larger the pot, the more soil you'll need. More soil means more water is held in the soil. Look at the plants you are using and choose the pot size accordingly. Small plants do not need large pots. If you are repotting, a good rule of thumb to remember is no more than 1 to 2 inches bigger in diameter than the original pot. Succulents prefer a snug pot anyway, so they do not need a lot of extra room. And lastly, number 6, use a layer of rocks. By adding a layer of rocks, pebbles, stones, or pumice, or a combination of these in the bottom of the pot, you can create a layer for drainage. This can help prevent root rot by allowing for excess water to drain out of the soil and into the rocks in the bottom. This helps prevent root rot by allowing the water to drain out of the soil faster and preventing the roots from sitting in wet soil for too long. This method is especially useful when using really tall or long planters. Most succulents don't have deep roots and do not need all that excess soil in the bottom, so using a layer of rocks is a good idea. I didn't use an extra layer of rocks for this planter because it is really shallow and small, and I've also been using it for over 3 years, so I am very familiar with it. So that's it, guys. Those are my 6 tips for you. And if all else fails, you can always drill a hole, which I have yet to learn to do with ceramic or glass. Maybe one of these days. So I'm almost done here and we'll wrap this up soon. Some fallen leaves here, I like to stick them in just to see what happens. Maybe they'll propagate, maybe not, but just leave them here. So before I end this video, I always like to give an update on how the plants are doing. I'm just watering the plants right now. By the way, this is the first time I'm watering these since I planted them here. So that's it, guys. That's all I have for you. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Please like this video if you found it useful and subscribe to this channel if these are the types of content you'd like to see. I have a playlist of related topics that you can check out down below. Thanks for stopping by, and as always, happy gardening!